Thank you so much for staying with us this morning. Now, the federal government held an emergency meeting on Wednesday in response to a planned nationwide protest over governance issues and the cost of living. On Tuesdays, Nigerian authorities, called on the organizers to shelve the plans to lead what they call is looking like a Kenyan-style protest. And they have urged the citizens to be patient with the government. Of course, some of us will remember the Kenya Gen Z's protest, which was sparked by a controversial finance bill brought to the forefront by the frustrations of a young population feeling neglected by its leaders. So let's have conversations this morning with three people joining us. Awar Afsanjani is Executive Director, Civil Society Legislative Advocacy, CISLAC. He is with us along with Dr. Segun Awosanya, who is President, International Reforms Advocates. He's also founder, Social Intervention Advocacy Group, as well as Damilare Adenala, who is the organizer of the Take It Back movement. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Now, let me begin with you.
Yes. Good morning.
Mr. Adenala, let me begin with you. Exactly what are we looking at? For a while, a good number of people have said, look, we don't even know the people who are organizing this protest. What's going on here? So if you can hear me, Mr. Adenala, so what exactly is going on? How come people are saying there is no face to the protests, and then you are here?
Can you hear me, sir?
Well, I can hear you now.
Sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I think it's an insult on hungry Nigerians, unemployed Nigerians, to say they are not being known or to say they are under-recognized. Are you saying that the Nigerians, young people who have been advocating on Twitter and off Twitter all the while, are you saying that their concerns are not genuine enough? Are you saying that their voices are, lower than the others? Are you saying that they have no right to complain? Are you saying that, they need to be recognized, in quotes, before they can hear their grievances? So I feel like the peddlers of that narrative are being mischievous, and they are working overtime to bastardize the genuine agitation of the Nigerian people. The organizers of the protests are the hungry Nigerians, they are the battered Nigerians, they are the economically marginalized Nigerians, they are the host of unemployed Nigerians, they are the Alimajiri children, they are the out-of-school children who have flooded our streets today. They are the organizers of the protest. So I think it's an insult to say that these people they need to be specially recognized before the agitation would be, considered.
Okay, so just to also understand, what exactly are the, should I say, demands? What's on the list? What is the protest about, and what is it intended to achieve?
All right, I think that the umbrella demand is systemic change. When we are saying systemic change, we are saying that you should enthrone a system that is more powerful than individuals, a system that is, that will resist interference of individuals who feel like, they're powerful, a system that will make sure that individuals are submitted to the law. So first of all, our demand advocates for an immediate constitutional conference that reviews the Constitution and amends it to reflect the will of the Nigerian people. I would say this, that, for instance, in the 1999 Constitution, why is the Chapter 2 not enforceable? Why is that the one that deals with social economy is not enforceable? Why is it that the one that deals with the welfare of the Nigerian people is not enforceable? Why is it that the government makes that part of the Constitution unenforceable? We want social welfare of the people to be paramount in the Nigerian Constitution, in the Constitution of the land. So we are calling for amendment of the Constitution to reflect the will of the people. We are also calling for a minimum wage, a living wage, a wage that is enough to cater for the Nigerian people in the face of the biting inflation rate in this country. For instance, food inflation has moved to 40% and minimum wage has not moved. So are you saying that you don't know that this is an economic error? Are you saying that you don't know that this is the reason for the increase in crime rates? Are you saying that this is also an excuse for corruption to rise in our parastatals? When you are underpaying workers, they have to resort to other means of ensuring that they live. We are all human beings. We are all human beings, and we have to factor our daily lives. So when you are saying that you want to offer Nigerians 70,000 naira minimum wage, which is less than $50 in today's economy, I feel like that's an insult. I feel like that's insensitive to the plight of daily Nigerians. So we are calling for a 250,000 naira minimum wage. In fact, we should be calling for more than that, because if we are to be honest with ourselves, what can 250,000 naira do for a working Nigerian?
Okay.
If we recognize the labor of the working Nigerians, then it's an insult to even be negotiating 200,000 naira, because labor actually creates wealth. Labor creates wealth, and not the bills, the moribund bills and insensitive bills and thoughtless bills that are flying around our House of Assemblies and all that. So we should prioritize the interests of the working Nigerians. Those that are working day and night to ensure that we have an economy in this country should be recognized.
Okay.
They should be factored.
Yes.
They should be paid.
Okay.
And we are also calling for a slash of the hike in school fees. We have seen the wave of increment in school fees, insensitive increment in school fees. What's the objective of that? Why are you trying to push Nigerians out of school? Are you trying to push young people out of school?
On
are you
that
trying
one,
to
very quickly,
reduce
Mr.
illiteracy or increase illiteracy?
Just a quick one on that particular issue. Are you aware of the student loan initiatives? And that is what obtains just a second. And that's what obtains in a number of other places all over the world. And that even if there was an increase in the school fees, it is the student loan initiative should be able to cater for it significantly, and that a good number of people in the North are already benefiting from it, and so many people from the South are not. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am aware of that. But if I may ask you, must you get Nigerians indebted before you educate them? Before you give the barest basic amenity to the Nigerian people? Do you have to get them burdened, especially in the face of the reality of our economy, which has occasioned untold unemployment rates? Look at unemployment in this country today. More than 23 million Nigerians have been out of work in the past 5 years.
All right, Mr. Adenola, let me engage.
Where is the employment there?
Yeah, we've spent about almost 10 minutes talking to you. Let me engage the other participants on this. Mr. Rafsanjani, thank you again for joining us in this conversation. So here we are. You've listened to Mr. Adenola, and what is your take on this upcoming protests? I'd like you to speak particularly about whether or not Nigerians have significantly engaged the various levels of authorities that we have. And I'm talking about, as Mr. Adenola said, this is a protest being initiated by Nigerians. So do you think we have significantly engaged all the people that we're supposed to engage at the various levels of authority in the nation before resorting to what we know to be protests as a final result?
Thank you very much. My brother, let us be realistic. How many Nigerians have access to even meeting with their representative, not to talk of meeting maybe with the people at high authority, like governors, ministers, not to talk of even the president. I think let us be realistic. Many of our elected officials are not accessible. They are not interested to meet with the Nigerians to even discuss issues. One of the major painful things is that the National Assembly has set aside a lot of resources for the constituency is to be able be meeting physically with their representative to discuss issues of concern in their constituencies so that they can suggest, they can also get feedback from you. But unfortunately, Nigerians, many of them did not have access to be meeting even with their representative. And under democracy, you cannot just go and think that it is only when already resources have been earmarked to be meeting with people to discuss issues like this. So that is number one. Number two, as we all know, many government officials did not believe that they have any reason to listen to anybody because they did not take their advice. They didn't even want to meet with them in the first place because once they get in their position, so nobody should talk to them. We have to understand that the kind of democracy we are operating is not really a real democracy where people were official feel obliged to even listen to people. That's why you see the framework without no consultation, no opportunity for Nigerians to express themselves. So I think, let us be realistic. And what are the issues that people are talking about? People are living under perpetual fear and this perpetual insecurity that people are going through. And government not need to wait until when people are pushed to say that they need to come out to demand for government to take certain action before they do. If you have responsible governance and active, for example, the government up to now have not set up time framework to say, okay, these issues that you are talking about, let us see, we are going to do X, Y, Z in the next 6 months or in the next 1 year. This is our plan. Till today, the Tinubu administration have not come up with, time framework to say that we are going to do X, Y, Z in response to the demands that people are talking about, which is, of course, the corruption, the hardship, the unemployment, the hunger, the poverty, the starvation, lack of integrity in our key institutions,
Mr. Rafsanjani, just a second, if you can hear me. Yeah, Mr. Rafsanjani, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Aren't we...
I can hear you very well.
Haven't we been successively and consistently over-centralizing the problems that we have? Just yesterday, I was in an interview with another gentleman, and he was saying that, look, when I put the same question I'm about putting to you, he said, look, about 3 to 4, maybe about 5 states are doing fairly well. I said, that's 5 out of 30 states. So out of 36 states. So that leaves us with about 31 states who are not doing well. So how is it going to make a difference what the federal government does when the states are the ones that are supposed to dissipate the services to the people directly? So aren't we over-centralizing the problem? When we're also always talking about the Buhari government, the Babangida government, the Obasanjo government, the Jonathan government, and we always seem to forget the state governors. Are we cutting them some slack?
My brother, the truth of the matter is that majority of the challenges, problems we have are actually at state and local level. However, there are certain fundamental policy that government are enacting at federal level. For example, this sudden withdrawal of subsidy without coming up with a so that can mitigate and bring the necessary relief to government. Secondly, the economic policy framework is being developed at federal level, So, and then also the federal government owns the security so that the people are safe and protected, So these are all federal, related issues which are affecting people at local and national level. So you cannot simply, ignore the fact that federal government has a fundamental role to play in order to ensure that things at the lower level are treated, set official.
Okay.
Common tweeting on issues that concern human rights on issues that concern corruption, they will arrest you. Right now, as I speak to you, in the North, these protests have been arrested, brutalized, and abuses. This is why we are saying that federal government has a responsibility to ensure that they lead by example, by ensuring that they set up a framework, a program that also has effect at lower level. It is absolutely necessary we join both the federal, state, and local government to demand for justice.
Absolutely.
A lot of things that are happening in the country, at national level, directly affect the local level. So it is a combination of concern that we have, and let us not just spare any part of the government.
That is noted, Mr. Rafsanjani. Let me talk to Dr. Awosanya now on this particular issue. So again, I mean, you would understand what the young are trying to do right now, as particularly around this protest. First of all, let me take your perspective on the upcoming protests.
Thank you very much, distinguished. And I want to appreciate the other guests in the studio who are contributing to the discourse. But I must say that in a complex world, good judgment isn't about trusting your gut. It is about testing your guts. If you must protest or declare an all-out protest in the country, you must have exhausted all lawful means. If you look at the model that we have, that people refer to in terms of the NSAS that brought about the common ground of Nigerians, brought them together to speak one language despite their differences, to talk about police brutality or engage in the end of the culture of impunity, and to kickstart the right means of prioritizing the reforms of the Nigerian police force. You realize that it did not start based on discontent alone. It did not start by declaring war on the government. It did not start by making threats to truncate the Nigerian democracy. It did not start by the demands to delete the Nigerian constitution based on ignorance. So discontent, emotions are not enough to engage matters of state. And if you say people are hungry, deleting the constitution is not an economic solution to the hunger of the people. We need to seek and trace the pathology of our problems. And so your protest, which is guaranteed by law, we have been saying that will forever defend the right of people to say what they need to say, even if I don't agree with what they are saying. And this has been consistent for the past years. You have your right to protest. Government also do not have the right to use force in order to destroy an idea. It will dissipate. It will not dissipate it. It will spread it, and it will turn it into a religion. Government, it is not true also that government is not willing to listen. I have actually been holding government to account for decades, and I don't agree with most presidents. Yet, I can tell you how much we have achieved together because we decided to reason together and prioritize Nigeria first, our unity and our security. Look, the mark of wisdom is being as quick to question old ideas as new information. Our people who are saying to Nigerians that the only way to engage government is to destabilize the country, is to burn the nation, is to declare days of rage, is to revolt against our government because Kenya is doing it. A country with the population of Ikorodu cannot be an example to a country with 220 million people. We are wiser, we are bigger, we have experience. This is a country that has been lending its economic forces to restore democracies across Africa. So if there are issues with the administration, we don't always have to like our government. There's no government in the world where the people actually fall in love with their president. You will agree to disagree. So my suggestion or our approach has always been to have an objective and an end goal in anything that we're doing. For the NSAS, this was about removing the culture of impunity and taking away all the poster child of impunity in the police system and kickstarting the reformation of the police, which we did through engagement of all arms of government at all levels. And it yielded results as at September when President Muhammadu Buhari signed the Police Act 2020 into law. And also in 2019, he also signed the Police Trust Fund, into law. So I'm surprised to hear the head of CISLAC, who also participated, very well in the police reform process, for saying government are not willing to listen. Even as we're speaking now, there's another advocacy running called Not in My State. Not in My State is not a discriminatory approach to things, but it is an advocacy initiative that calls upon citizens to embrace the shared responsibility in protecting the integrity of their communities and society. It seeks to counter the destructive path of civil unrest and societal deterioration by rallying people to reject prejudice, violence, and divisive rhetoric. The initiative emphasizes that well-being of one is inextricably linked to the well-being of all, and encourages individuals to be their brothers and sisters' keeper through lawful and non-violent means. You see, when you declare a day of rage, remember the last protest was about peacefully protesting the end of impunity and reformation of police. Yet, it ended up in chaos after 5 days. So if you are now starting with declaration of revolt and a day of rage, what exactly do you expect? Especially now that we have several layers of agitating groups who have already started listing the list of people and names of people they are going to smother and the properties they are going to burn. How exactly would you expect a government to take lightly the declaration of anarchy? So we should put ourselves in a position of leaders and think like leaders for once before we criticize or before we reject certain things. We should look at how we can work together. The policy issues you are speaking to cannot be achieved on the protest ground. Government will not sit down at tables with protesters. They will address you and you will go home. We need more advocates who will say, yes, I'm looking at the Constitution. We have amended constitutions before. America is amending constitutions today. They are older, they have older democracies. Why can't we look for ways to do this? And while we are talking about Not in My State, advocacy and rest, for the past days now, there has been a presidential mandate for all ministers to give account of stewardship to the citizenry on their own turf, not on TV, because that may be read as propaganda. We have been engaging several ministers now on Twitter, on X, on what they are doing, the problems they have, where we are as a nation, and what the problems are. And citizens are freely asking them questions. And it has been thoroughly revealing. We are beginning to see those who embodied the renewed hope agenda and who are doing stuff. And then there are more are coming. So these are the kind of means through which we can exhaust or fully exhaust the opportunities we have to know what government is doing. You have said it, you have rightly said it today that the federal government they know, because protest is for awareness, they know that people are hungry. They know that their policies is going to make us tighten our belt. And they are also working to ameliorate this by making sure that they send food items to different states. They send fertilizers to different states. They disburse funds, huge funds to the state. How much have we engaged our state leaders, our local government chairman, our councillors, our House of Assembly members at the state level, our House of Assembly at the federal level? So we have over-centralized our problem, and we are catastrophizing and creating standoffs that will force us to look like Kenya. We cannot look like Kenya. We can't take Kenya's path to addressing our issues as a nation.
Dr. Uzaya, are you a member of the APC?
No, I am not. I have no political party. I'm partyless. I have no ideology that I'm jumping on. I have no cult groups that I belong to. I work.
Are you sympathetic? Are you sympathetic to any political party?
No, I am not sympathetic to any political party. I see every citizen of my country as fellow citizen and first as human beings. I focus more on our convergence, the issues that binds us, other than the things that divides us.
Are you benefiting from?
We cannot all be of the same.
Just a second. Are you benefiting, Dr. Awusa? Are you benefiting from any government contract at any state or federal level?
I believe that the states and the federal level are benefiting from my advocacy. They have always been benefiting.
I just wanted to put all of that out. Dr. Awusa. Just so it's so that we know, where your interest lies. Well, Doctor, beg your pardon, Mr. Adenola. Now, you've listened to two other, thoughts in this particular matter, but let me just take you on two of them. One, do you think we have sufficiently exhausted all other possibilities, particularly at the state and local government levels? I'm sure you must as well be scandalized because I've heard this said many years, I've been in broadcasting for long enough to know, that someone who becomes a councillor, I'm even talking about the Third Republic, someone who became a councillor within a short time, before you knew what was happening, the guy already had a house, was building houses, buying cars and all of those things. So yes, it can be very, very annoying. But do you think we have significantly exhausted all levels of advocacy before we call out people for these protests?
Yes, the fact remains that this government has been in power for nearly a year or more than a year now.
Just a second, Mr. Nat'l. Which government? The federal government or state governments?
Tinubu, the federal government. The federal government.
Now, I'm asking whether or not we have exhausted advocacy or agitation with the different state governments and local government authorities first.
Wait, I feel like the agitation should be taken to the federal government, because in a country as Nigeria, where we are just debating local government autonomy in 2024, the agitation should be taken to the federal government. So when the agitation is taken to the federal government, and if you look at our demands, we are saying constitutional reform to make local government effective, to create a system that holds state governors accountable and makes state governments to work for the interest of the people. As of today in Nigeria, state governments don't work for the interest of the people. The allocations that they receive in state coffers has gone down the drain of their interests. And that's why you mentioned here that they build all sorts of houses, buy themselves luxury cars. And that's why we are agitating for constitutional reform. Mr. Segar said earlier on that what's the connection between the constitution and the economy. Now, don't forget that the constitution is the basis of the daily lives of the Nigerian people, and that's why the constitution provides for economic rights for the people in Chapter 2. So, if you can get the constitution to be reformed, I can assure you that every other thing will fall in place at the state level and at the local government level. So, and that's why we are calling for a constitutional reform. We want the constitution to reflect the interests of the Nigerian people.
In what way at this point,
so for me, there's no point engaging a local government.
Okay, but you are aware that the local government administrations get billions of naira in allocations to them from the federal government, and they are also supposed, and this is one of the things that perhaps this agitation should also speak to, how much does a state...
Of course, I agree with you.
Just a second. How much does a state contribute to that joint allocation purse of the local governments? Because money from the federal government is supposed to go in there, money from state governments is supposed to go in there before going to the local government administrations. Are you aware of any state that contributes money into that purse before sending it to the local governments?
Well, while I may not be aware, my point is hinged on the fact that Nigerian people have been powerless in terms of holding these people accountable. And the only way to empower Nigerians, to be able to hold the people in power accountable, or to be able to resist them from, embezzling our money, is to enthrone a powerful constitution. I insist that we can only have these debates after a thorough systemic reform, after our constitution has undergone a review and, it has been amended to tighten all the loose ends.
Okay, Mr. Nat'l, let me just ask you before I go to Mr. Rafsanjani. Have you ever attended any constitution review process since the Fourth Republic began?
Have I ever attended the constitutional review conference, if I may?
Yes, there is usually a public hearing.
That question very well.
There's usually a public hearing that the National Assembly engages in whenever there is going to be a constitutional review. I'm asking that because when you talk about... Just a second. I'm asking that because if we want this to change, if we want the constitutional review and everything to take whatever shape that it needs to take, we have to be in the room. So if we want this to happen and we don't have any referendum to them, we don't have any submissions to them, how are we going to achieve it? So I'm asking whether you have ever attended any and you know how that process goes so that this thing that you're talking about can actually be done the way you want it done.
It is feasible. It is feasible. A constitutional conference is feasible today in Nigeria. While I might have not attended one, at least I knew of the confab under Jonathan government, and I know.
No, I'm talking about this
for a fact
Fourth
that the confab,
Republic. I'm talking about this
to be
Fourth
implemented.
Republic. Just a second. I'm talking about the Fourth Republic. There have been 5 alterations.
Okay.
5 alterations to this constitution, the 1999
Yes.
constitution that we have, and another alteration
Yes.
is already in the offing.
We are not asking for. We are not asking for mere alterations. We are asking for a resuscitation. We are asking for a thorough review and overhauling of the constitution. We are asking for the foundation of the constitution to be amended. The constitution has to, have the interest of the people. Why is it that in the 1999 constitution, the chapter 2 is not enforceable? The only one that has to do with social economy, social welfare of the people is not enforceable.
What
by
part of
virtue of that,
chapter 2?
we cannot
What
hold
section?
irresponsible
What
government
section? I'm actually
accountable.
opened. Just a second. I'm actually open to section to chapter 2 now. What section of this constitution are you talking about that's not enforceable?
I'm talking of the chapter 2, the one that says that the responsibility of the government is the social welfare of the people.
Well, that when we say government, there you do realize
Fundamental
that
responsibility of the government.
yes, you do realize when we talk about the responsibility of government, you do realize we are talking about 3 layers of government,
Yes.
right?
Of course.
Okay, all right, Mr. Rafsanjani.
Of course.
Let me just a second. We'll come to you. Let me talk to you, Mr. Rafsanjani. Now, with all of these things that you have heard, and since you're already in support of this, I'm wondering whether you think, again, that we have sufficiently exhausted all opportunities. Now, I believe, and I have had to engage a local government chairman before, even though it wasn't his responsibility, I engaged him about electricity supply to my house about 20 years ago. I went to his house. He happened to be living a few blocks away. And I went to him and I said, sir, we have not had electricity on this street for X number of weeks. And you use generators and all of those things. We don't have the generators you use. And I knew it wasn't his place because he wasn't empowered to do that. But he had the responsibility to go tell the governor, who should tell the president at the time, that, look, they don't have electricity on my street. If all local government chairmen did that, I don't think that the president will sleep easy. So do you think, as I ask again, that we have sufficiently and significantly engaged our authorities enough to persuade the people that they needed to do whatever they needed to do? Mr. Rafsanjani, that's for you.
Stop using yourself as an example. You see, you are can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello? Yeah. I said, please stop using yourself as an example. Stop using yourself as an example. You are different from millions of Nigerians. You are popular. You are seen in the TV. Even the governor, even the military, even the president can give you audience and can listen to what you are saying, okay? We are talking about millions of Nigerians who have no access to even their local government chairman because they will not even want to see them.
Mr. Rafsanjani, if I can quickly punctuate you on that one, just a second, if I can quickly punctuate you. I was not a TV face 10 years ago. I can hear you now, but if you could just, let me just punctuate that. I was not a TV face 10 years ago, and I was not known. I was just a neighbor as everybody else. And I'm saying this so that people don't think that Nigerians, that the government officials all only listen to people that they know. Someone like you, someone like Shega, someone like Mr. Denola can walk up to the local government chairman and say, I demand this, and they must listen. Why? They are civil servants. They serve the people. I just wanted to make that point. You can go ahead.
Yes, well, it's easy for you to simplify this and to think that access, is that easy, and even my friend, the guy that is talking about the Twitter space, how many of them actually come to talk about policy changes that is informed on the people's demands? Look, I work as an advocate, and since the return of democracy, I've been working, and I can boast to say that, yes, there are so many legal frameworks that we advocated that actually, see the light of the day, that reflected the yearning and the aspiration Constitution of Nigerians. I was a member of the Constitutional Conference in 2014, and we advocated so many things, until today, we are still advocating on so many both at the national and the state level. We are doing that. But I'm not looking at myself. I'm looking at the majority of the issues that are being discussed today, and many Nigerians who did not actually have that access that we are talking about. And I'm saying that our National Assembly members have constituency offices, but they did not even want to meet with nobody. I work on this, since the return of democracy. I've been working to ensure that we have reflection of people's feelings, and aspiration, that we can have a more progressive, socio-economic, framework that can alleviate the sufferings of Nigerians. But I tell you, many of the officials did not want to listen to anybody. There are very few people who will want to listen, and even if they listen, they just not want to play for something. You can sit down and think that you can't listen that easy. When you are not a victim of what Nigerians are talking about here, it's easy for you to brush it out. People are being denied to go to farm. They cannot go anywhere. They are afraid of kidnappers. Kidnappers would be changing, having conversation. In fact, actually selling people, and yet people should just keep quiet. Look, I think because some people are not going through the pain that people are going through, that is why they can sit down at their comfort of things. When you are in Twitter, how many Nigerians have access to even that Twitter that we are talking about? Let's be realistic. Our problem. And that is why we are where we are today. Because if they are concerned with, what Nigerians are feeling, and based on the mandate, the constitutional mandate they have, there will not be reason for calling to all these protests.
Okay.
Because protest is coming simply because people are frustrated, people are tired, people are being killed left and right, and nobody
It
is
goes
coming
back to the
rescue.
question that I asked you earlier, Mr. Rafsanjani. I do get you. It goes back to the question that I'm asking. The state governments are closer to the people than the federal government. It goes back to the same issue that I'm asking, because they get money in trillions, maybe in hundreds of billions every month from the federation account. So why are we not asking them? It seems that we are... Anyway, let's listen to some reactions. Mr. Shegalink, I'm coming back to you shortly. Skittish Money says planned protest. One insight from the discussion this morning is people resort to protest because other avenues of engagement don't exist. Our politicians are not democratic in principle. Representation means you hear what people want to know. I know what is good. You will hear what people want, not I know what is good for you. And that is one. Festus Akimboyewa says the federal government should not beg people not to exercise their democratic rights to protest. Instead, it should focus on how to prevent criminally minded individuals from using the protest to commit crimes and ensure the public can go about their lives daily without serious implications. And Otunshe says, please ask the doctor talking about renewed hope agenda when government is running an overbloated government, buying new presidential jet, building VP houses for billions of naira, buying SUVs for legislators. Well, thankfully, I didn't even know that was coming. So you may want to speak to that, Dr. Adesoya. But question I would like to ask you, and of course you've also listened to that, is the fact that government hasn't been as engaging as it ought to be. I always raise this issue on this program wherever I have the opportunity to say that communication is a two-way street, not a one-way street. And people are going to be as angry as they want to be if we don't give them information. So you speak to them the first time, they react. You speak to them the second time, they react, and you stop. No. So do you think, if you look at the mechanisms of government communication, do you think government at whatever level is doing enough to persuade the people that they mean well?
Thank you very much. And I agree with you that government has not been forthcoming in terms of effective communication. And at the same time, you remember that government also reflects the people. There's no problem we see in government now that is not reflective of our society. We don't listen to people. We don't listen to ourselves. We don't practice emotional intelligence enough to put ourselves in the position of others. You know, what happens is that when we hear something, we embrace it based on how it mirrors our sentiments. We're hardly objective about most of the things that we hear. I heard about people talking about, oh, government is spending this, they're spending that. Have you looked into the budget? What is the percentage of executive spending in the national budget? Is it up to 2%? What about legislature and judiciary? If combined, is it up to 6%? So when you add everything together, ask yourself, the bulk of the funds going into the states that have even been doubled now, how have they spent it? So we've made gods of our governors. But unfortunately, the governments themselves, the federal government, they are winking in the dark. They are not communicating, they are not engaging, they are not listening, they are reacting, and they don't practice proactivity, they are not proactive to things, and that's why things fester. So I don't blame people who are angry, I don't blame people who are reacting, I don't blame people who feel the only way to engage government is to cause disruption. But I'm simply saying, if we reason together and we talk about the issues and we look for find means through which we can engage government, we can find solutions to this. We did not fix the law on the street. We engaged and we got a response even before the protest on NSAS. So we can do the same thing with this. Since we're talking about constitutional reform, you don't sit down and change the whole constitution overnight or delete the constitution. Because the moment you do that, you don't have a president, you don't even own your own home. Because it is the law of the land that is giving you all those rights. So that's why we're saying we can identify aspects of the constitution and progressively find means to, fix the issues within the system. That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Well, but the question hasn't really been answered. I mean, so here we are. What would you recommend to, because the word has gone out, and I'm sure you have been on some X spaces that the number of people have had conversations and they are talking about all kinds of things. There are those who also say the federal government has spoken to that. Maybe I should actually ask Mr. Adenola that. You've heard the military talk about the fact that they have been able to identify some people who have sworn that they are going to cause commotion in the city, anywhere. There are those who are already lined up and saying they have identified places that they are going to loot. They have identified places they are going to burn down. They have identified individuals that they are going to attack as soon as the protest begins. What are your thoughts on that? Add that to the content of your letter to the Minister of the FCT, that you have declared days of rage. That, of course, it's only natural for anyone to say, no, we're not going to take that. What are your thoughts on that, on the responses that are coming from the declaration of days of rage?
Let me quickly dissociate our protests from, Mr. Sega's preemption, because I see that he's been working over time. I don't know if he has been contracted by the government to speak on their behalf, because I don't understand his desperate attempt to demonize our protest. I do not understand his desperate attempt to presume that our genuine agitation is going to snowball into violence, or some people are going to hijack it, or it's a form of violent action against the government. All we have been saying is that we have a right constitutionally guaranteed by constitutionally guaranteed to protest under Section 39, 40, and 41 to express our grievances peacefully, and that's what we are going to do come August 1st in Abuja. We have selected Eagle Square, and with regard to the Nigerian Army's correspondences saying that they've identified potential violent attackers, to show their competence, let them go and pick them. We're in support of picking violent elements as such. Go and pick them, show your competence. And if you look at it, to show their insincerity, look at the number of people that the DSS have picked up recently. There are people who have, also been agitating for peaceful protest. So you can see that they are not sincere. Since they've been making this statement, who has been arrested in connection with these allegations of violence or with this suspicion of violence. No single person has been arrested. And they keep flying this narrative. So you can see that all of these attempts are just to demonize our protest or to illegitimize our protest or to demobilize Nigerian people from protesting. But I can assure Mr. Sega that at this point, all these attempts are futile. They are going to be futile because nothing can deter Nigerians. Nothing can deter angry Nigerians.
But you've not really answered my question, Mr. Adenola. Just a second. You've not really answered my question.
Yes,
I mean, you've responded to some of them. I said, add that to the content of your letter, where you put a hashtag Days of Rage.
Yes.
If contextual English, just a second. If contextual meaning if I understand contextual meaning, it means that there's going to be rage.
Yes.
So, is that the plan to cause mayhem?
Rage in this contest.
Yes.
Yes. Rage in this contest, implies that we are angry and we are going to be showing our anger by peacefully demonstrating, by peacefully taking over the streets, and we are not going to leave the streets until our demands are met. That is what are these
demands?
Implies.
What are these demands?
If Mr. Sega,
just a second. What are these demands that must be met?
Some of these, yes, subsidy removal must be reversed in order to ensure that the price of PMS is reduced to 200 naira, so that subsequently or consequently prices of food can reduce.
That's number one. Which other item on the list?
Another one is that all NSAS detainees and political detainees should be released.
Okay. Next.
They should be released.
Next.
Then we said that we should go to unicameralism in order to cut excessive and unreasonable government spending. There's no need for us to have a Senate House when we already have a populated House of Rep.
So, are you also calling? Just a second. Just so we get clarity, I'm already out of time. Are you also saying that the Constitution should be suspended?
No. What we are saying is that we can use an interim constitution. The same thing happened in South Africa during the apartheid. We can use an interim constitution while.
Do we have a draft of that interim constitution? Do we have an interim constitution?
Even if we do not have a draft, wait, Mr. Anko, I believe that it is when we begin to discuss about what benefits the people that we begin to analyze the complexity of the whole thing.
Okay.
It doesn't take, governance is not rocket science. Governance, when Tinubu wanted to push the 70,000 minimum wage, the whole thing happened under 3 to 2 days. So,
but you do know that
governance complex in order to defend the people in power.
You do know that process that you talked about didn't happen on the streets. It happened with engagement, right?
Yes.
Okay.
While we are also on the streets too, we are engaging. But protest is the only language that African governments understand. And we have seen it. Mr. Sega is trying to impose himself as a professor of protest, who is trying to, draw up a model of protest. And I'll tell him that the protest that sent military parking in Nigeria was not modeled by anybody. Nobody sat down to draw the master plan of the protest that sent parking the military in Nigeria. Nobody sat down to draw the protest
Are you saying that anyway? I'm completely out of time, Mr. Adenola, and I really wish we could have this conversation more. Maybe it's, behind the scene, you and I don't have your number yet. Maybe somehow we'll find a way to talk so that you can have some understanding of how that's one of the 90s. My number is on the viral letter. Now, just a second, so we can have that conversation and we'll take that on. But thank you so much for your time this morning. Damilare Adenola is the organizer of the Take Back movement. We appreciate your time. Our Rafsanjani, Executive Director, Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC. Thank you so much for your time this morning, as well as Dr. Segun Awosanya, who is President, International Reforms Advocates and Senior Social Intervention Advocacy Group Foundation, SIAF. Thank you so much, Dr. Awosanya, for your time. We truly, truly appreciate your perspective this morning, gentlemen. That's one down, 4 to go. After this break, we talk about rethinking reforms. Do stay with us.